Hello, my name is Michael Terry, and today I'm going to be talking about some foods that are influenced by early colonizers in Canada. Now, this is a map of Canada and all of the provinces that it has. One of the biggest influences on Canadian cuisine is due to the British, the Irish, and the French settlers in the eastern part, where Ontario, Quebec, Newfoundland, Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick is located at. German and Ukrainian settlers in the western part of Canada. Now, I picked Canada because I traveled to Victoria in British Columbia, Edmonton, and Alberta 3 times, and I really loved it up there. The landscape, the people, and the food is what really draws me there. I love Canada so much. And if I could live there, I would, but I'm in America. So, this is the climate and the geography of Canada. Now, obviously, they have very cold winters. And as you can see in Saskatchewan and Alberta, you could see that it has very extreme drought. And over the next 50 years, you can see that the red areas there, they're going to expand and go towards, or actually just go north. And it's all over the Canadian plains, and that's really going to hurt the Canadian agriculture. Canada as a whole has very short and cool summers. Canada has different climates because of its size, so it's very different from the western part in Vancouver to the eastern part all the way in New Brunswick, or Ottawa or Montreal. So they have different climates, or even as far as Yellowknife in the north. Um, and the climate has really been affected in Canadian agriculture up there. They have really suffered from droughts, and shorter and less severe winters are a growing concern for Canada's agriculture industry. The prairies are home to more than 80% of Canada's agricultural land. Severe weather events such as floods and droughts and others extremes cause tornadoes, blizzards, and mudslides, which could cause a reduction of crop yields to 50%. That's a big deal. Warmer temperatures are also an issue for livestock farmers who have to deal with the heat related deaths with their animals. It really hurts them. Also, increased atmospheric CO2 and increased pesticide use contribute to more weed growth in their crop fields. Due to the use of more pesticides, the transportation and the application of the pesticides leads to higher costs for the farmers. It's not a good time for them, and it's only going to get worse. So they're really trying to find solutions for these issues right now. Now, the British influence on Canadian cuisine. Many of the British settlers dating back to the 18th and 19th century are located around southern Ontario. Back in these times, many of the British inspired dishes had come from what was mostly available in this part of Canada at the time: salt cured fish, beef, and pork. In the early 19th century, the popular foods in Upper Canada included maple sugar, pumpkins, wild fruits, turkey, partridge, pigeon, squirrel, hare, and ducks. Some of that stuff we don't really eat that much anymore. They do in other parts of the world, including Canada still, but here in the United States, we don't really eat squirrel, pigeons, or ducks that much. And here, British influenced food. This one is an example. It's called Bachelor's Mushy Peas, and it's a British comfort food that is actually served in Canada, some parts of Canada, not all of the provinces. Mushy peas are a traditional British cuisine, originated back in northern England in the mid 19th century. Now, mushy peas has been around for a very long time, and is very popular in Britain. But Also in Canada, people eat it along with other dishes. They put it together as sides. Now, there's some French influenced food, and an example would be butter tarts, very popular in Canada and also in France. Um, it consists of butter, sugar, and eggs inside of a small pastry. According to the Canadian Encyclopedia, these originated back in the 17th century from two young French women who immigrated all the way from France, actually. And they were from royalty, I believe. And they didn't really have much to do because they had to marry men and they were at home and they didn't really do much. So they ended up baking a lot and put together butter, sugar, and eggs, very basic, and created butter tarts. Well, maybe they didn't call it then, but now it's known as butter tarts. Now, French influence on Canadian cuisine, they arrived on North America. They settled in what is known as Quebec, which is very close to Montreal, founded in 1608 by Samuel de Champlain. They found an interest in the local foods the land had to offer, including wild birds, wild fish, and edible native plants. Not very long after the French settlers began growing European crops and raising European livestock, bread, lard, and beef are the three main food groups that are still in the center of French Canadian food culture. So some of these French settlers made home in what is known today as Montreal and Quebec City and are very close to each other, like I said. Just across the river, as you can see in the picture, there is a body of water there and it's splitting the land. So you could just tell that maybe this little area here with the houses could be Quebec City or the beginning of it. And across the body of water there could be Montreal. I mean, maybe not that close, but you know, that's how it looked like and how it started or could have. Canada actually established the Department of Foreign Affairs in 1909 to extend foreign relations beyond the British Empire. 20,000 French immigrants went through the government recruitment channels and were driven out of the Canadian countryside. By 1935, 70% of those immigrants were farmers. By 1941, half of those French immigrants were in Western Canada and 35% lived in Quebec. Now, here's a map of where Quebec and Montreal is. So you can see that there is a body of water, and just up that body of water from Montreal is Quebec. And most of the people immigrating from Britain, but mostly from France, lived in that just off that coast there. And as you can see over here in the east area, um, along the coastlines there are other French settlements and created some of those provinces in those areas. I know there's New Prince Island right there. So this is a good map of showing where everything is. The early agriculture in Canada. Now, in early 20th century, French immigrant farmers had to adapt to the harsh winters, learn to tend livestock, and learn English. So that's where we see a lot of bilinguals in this area and in the whole country of Canada. We see a lot of people who know French in certain provinces and areas, and also know English because it just comes from their ancestors. They had to do it and they were not used to those winters. In Nova Scotia, they actually used the ox for loading and unloading cargo off of ships. Strong and sturdy animals that could stand in salt water. Other regions in Canada actually just use horses. Now, after the Prime Minister John A. Macdonald at the time of Canada purchased huge amounts of land in 1870, which is now known as Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. The mid 1890s is where Canadian prairie saw its growth in wheat farming. By 1911, they acquired 231 bushels. Now, that's a huge pump in all these wheat bushels and was a huge growth in the Canadian agriculture. Well, that's pretty much it. This is my reference page. So I really appreciate you guys listening. And I really hope you learned something from how the British and the French influenced Canadian cuisine and a little bit of history about how they influenced the food, the culture, and about the geography. So again, thank you for listening. Appreciate it. No.